Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your host, Alex, Credit Expert. I'm back with another video to give you guys some game about credit and funding. Today, we're going to be talking about how 0% funding works. I talk about it all the time, but what does it mean? What are the benefits of it? How does it work? Let's break it all down here today. So if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and click the like button, leave a comment down below, and hit subscribe. That way you guys are updated anytime I drop another video. And for you guys that have been following me, stick around because you guys are gonna get some more value here today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So how does 0% funding work? First off, what is 0% funding? So 0% funding is referring to the 0% interest. 0% interest means when you get this money, you're not paying any money on it back. So I'm gonna give you guys a quick example. Let's say the bank let us borrow $10,000 at, let's just say 10% interest rate. And we're gonna keep it super simple. 10% of 10,000 is $1,000. This means the bank is expecting us to pay them $11K for the $10K that we borrowed. The great thing about funding is, let's say you get 10,000 at 0% interest. That means the bank just wants 10K back. This is basically free money. So you have to realize how 0% funding is game changer. Basically, the bank is lending you money and not asking you to pay anything in return. That's unheard of. A lot of people, when they hear 0% funding, they're confused because it just doesn't make sense. It's basically free money. Now, obviously, most 0% funding products come with special terms. So the first things I want to talk to you guys about is, what does 0% funding allow us to do? So as you guys can see here, 0% funding, one of the things it will allow us to do is maximize profits. The reason why we get to maximize profits is because if we are borrowing money to then make more money on top, if we don't have to pay anything back in interest, we maximize profits. Let's go back to this example where, let's say the bank gives us 10K, but we know they're gonna charge us 10% interest. And at the end of everything, we're gonna pay them $1,000. That goes straight to interest. This is just lost to interest, right? Let's say we have a business plan that we know if we borrow 10K, we'll be able to make $5,000 profit. Well, if we borrow the 10K at the 10% interest rate, we already know we're gonna pay back 1K in interest. So that means if we made 5K profit, we would subtract the 1K we lost in interest, and we are left with 4K profit. If we borrowed the 10K at 0% interest and we know whatever we're getting into is gonna make us 5K, we make a full 5K because we're not paying any interest to borrow this money. So this is how you start maximizing profits very quickly, because you don't have to worry about paying anything in interest, because anything that goes into interest is lost money that you are paying out of your pocket. So that is one way 0% funding allows us to maximize profits. Now, the second thing is it's free money. As I mentioned to you guys, this money is not costing us anything. So when we borrow that money from the bank, obviously our goal is to borrow that money and invest it or use it to create more income. If we borrow $10,000 from the bank at 0% interest, and let's say we don't make any money on top, let's say it was a flop, but let's say we at least make the $10,000 back, then we didn't pay anything, it didn't cost us anything. However, let's say we borrow the 10K and use it strategically and make $15,000. Well, now we borrowed free money to make $5,000. This means we borrowed free money to create money. You have to think about it. If you don't have 10K to start whatever you need to do, let's say what you want to start costs 10K. If you don't have 10K, you're not going to do it. So this is what I mean about getting free money. You are borrowing somebody's money for free in order to get into that opportunity and then make your money on top. So this is what I mean about how 0% funding is free money and it helps you maximize your profits. Now, for those of you that are entrepreneurs, business owners, or maybe managing debt, 0% credit cards allow you to hold a balance and not worry about getting charged interest. So what does this mean? On traditional credit cards, when you swipe a purchase, you're gonna have some type of interest rate. This means when you make your monthly payment, a portion of it will go to the balance, the money that you spent, and a portion of it will get lost in interest. That is what the credit card company is charging you in order to use their money. When it's a 0% interest credit card, you're able to hold a balance because it's 0% interest. During the time that that credit card is 0% interest, you're not getting charged interest on the money that you owe. So this allows you to hold the balance a lot longer. All holding a balance means is that you're just not paying the full amount immediately. You're holding on to it and slowly paying it back. Now, one thing to note is that 0% credit cards are not 0% forever. Certain cards may be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, or even more. So it's important that you always look at the time frame of the 0% interest product that you are getting and only hold the balance during that time. Because if your 0% interest runs out, whatever amount you owe on the credit card is going to be charged the normal interest rate once the 0% interest period is over. But the great thing, again, is that it lets us hold a balance. And this is also important for startups and business owners, because if you know that you can invest into a coach, maybe into a new system, maybe into AI, maybe it's going to cost you $20,000 that you don't have disposable in your bank account, but you know your credit card is 0% interest for 18 months, that's a year and a half. Most of you guys are going to feel confident knowing that I can make this investment today to get all that knowledge and value implemented back into my company and be able to pay that $20,000 that I invested today within a year and a half or whatever the time frame is. So this is the power of 0% interest funding. It allows us to get into opportunities a lot sooner because we feel safe knowing that we can hold that balance for a long time before the 0% interest runs out. This gives us time to make our money back and pay off the cards that we used. Now, moving on to the next benefit, it helps us shift DTI. DTI is debt to income. What this means is how much do you pay every month towards your monthly debts and how much income do you bring in? To keep it simple, let's say your income is $10,000 a month. We're talking gross. This is before taxes. $10,000 a month. Now let's say you pay about $5,000 every single month towards your debt. This can include your car payments, mortgages, credit cards, any type of debt that is showing up on your credit reports will be calculated here. So let's say $5,000 a month goes to paying your debt and $10,000 a month is what you bring in. Now, when you calculate this, you will be at a 50% DTI ratio because $5,000 out of your $10,000 is going to pay debt. 50% of your income is going to pay your debt. For banks love to see people at 30% or lower. However, some banks can approve up as high as 50% DTI. But the reason why 0% funding is also really important for us, if you take out business funding, this is 0% business credit cards that are under a business that do not show up on a personal credit report. You can open these cards up and you can have these cards pay off the money that you owe on your personal credit report. What this means is now we're able to take the debts from the personal credit report and shift them over to the business credit report. If you guys have been following the page, you guys understand that most business products are not going to show up on your personal credit report. What does this mean? Let's say you're showing $30,000 worth of debt on your personal credit report. Maybe you owe that money on an auto loan, a cash loan, or maybe it's on credit cards, $30,000 worth of debt. Now, let's say you took out $30,000 worth of business funding. Let's say you got $30,000 at 0% interest on a credit card. What you could do is you can liquidate that money. That means convert that $30,000 into cash, use that cash to pay off your personal credit cards where you owe $30,000. Now, what happens is you just paid off your $30,000 worth of personal debt. So you are no longer going to show that debt on the personal side, and it's been transferred to the business side. Now you're holding $30,000 worth of debt on the business side. Remember, if you're getting the right business products, they're not going to show up on your personal credit. So now you're holding balances on the business side, but nobody can see them. This causes your personal credit file to no longer show that debt, which means your debt to income ratio is going to drop. Because let's say this $30,000 debt you had was costing you $1,000 every month. Well, if you move that $30,000 worth of debt on your personal side to your business side, you just took off $1,000 worth of debt payments. This reduces your debt to income ratio, which puts you in a better position to get approved for any type of funding you're going for. So this is one way you can shift your debt to income ratio by moving your personal debt over to your business debt. And obviously we want to hold it on 0% interest credit cards because we don't get charged any interest. So this is another benefit of shifting the DTI. The other thing too is that if you are trying to start a business or invest money, you always want to use the cheapest money out there. Again, if you're trying to start a business, the reason we like 0% funding is because you can use as much money as you need to as you go. To give you guys an example, if you get a cash loan, once you are approved for that cash loan, your payments start in 30 days and you have to keep paying every single month until you're done paying that money back. The great thing about 0% credit card funding is that you only make purchases as you need to. Whenever an expense comes up, you swipe the card and then you just pay back that card on a monthly basis. So this means you don't have to commit to taking out a $50,000 loan to get your business started. You can fund yourself $50,000, but maybe you only spend $5,000 here, $10,000 there. This puts less pressure on you to start that business. And remember, it's free money, you're maximizing your profits, and you can hold the balance because you can hold that money you spent as long as that 0% interest is there. So this allows starting a business to be much easier and allow it to happen much quicker because now you can just borrow the money instead of having to waste time, months and years of saving up this money in cash. The next thing is that you can invest this money. To give you an example, when I was younger, what I actually did is I invested some money into the stock market. At the time, this was when AMC and GameStop was happening. For those that experienced that back in 2020 during the COVID period, I actually used my credit card to go ahead and buy $2,000 worth of AMC stock. And 2 months later, I was able to make a $3,000 profit return on my money that I invested. So I spent $2,000, but when I sold, I made $5,000. $3,000 was profit because $2,000 went to go pay back the credit card. But this is an example of how you can invest the credit card money to get into situations where you can make more money on top. And the card I used at the time was not 0% interest. They charged me interest on that money, but it was only for 3 months, so it wasn't that bad. However, if I would have had 0% funding at that time and knew about it, it would have been a game changer. So this is how you can also invest that 0% funding in order to get into investment opportunities. And finally, the last pro that I'm gonna talk to you guys about today is that it allows us to pay your debt off quicker. One important thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the debt you are paying back, most of the time, a big portion of your monthly payment is going to interest, while a little bit is going to the balance. So what does this mean? I'm gonna show you guys an example. If you owe 10K and your monthly payment is 500, that does not mean that after you pay 500, you only owe 9,500. Most of the time, this $500 payment will include an interest payment, which let's say could be 300, and then an actual principal payment, which we can say is 200. That means out of that 500 payment, 300 went to interest and 200 went to the principal. This means that even though you just made a $500 payment and you think your new balance is 9,500, it's actually only 9,800 because only 200 of that $500 went to the actual principal, which was 10K, while the $300 got lost in interest. However, if you owed $10,000 on a 0% card, if you made a $500 payment, then yes, all of that is going straight to the principal, which means now you only owe 9,500 after that payment. So this is how you can pay off your debt quicker, because what you can do is if you have high interest credit cards or maybe a high interest loan, you can actually get 0% interest funding, and then you can do a balance transfer, or you can liquidate the card, get the cash out in order to pay off this debt. What then happens is that balance is now on a 0% card for whatever time frame they gave you the 0% interest. And now every payment you make is going to knock down the entire balance. You're not throwing away or wasting any of that payment towards interest. It's all attacking the balance. So this is a very good way to pay your debt off quicker if you are in a situation where you have a lot of debt. But these are just some of the pros of 0% funding and why we love it so much. There's more that we'll talk about in further videos, but I just wanted to tap on these for today. Now, one thing I want to take note of is the stuff I wrote over here. One important thing about 0% interest funding is that we have to understand some of its limitations. First off, we need to understand the time frame. This is where it's crucial that you read the terms and conditions of the card you're getting. Certain cards I've seen as low as 3 months for the 0% interest period. Some I've seen as 6 months. Majority I do see are 12 months, and very select few I see 18 months or more. Obviously, we would love to have the 18 months because that's a whole year and a half, sometimes even 2 years of 0% interest. This is a long time that we can hold balances. 12 months is kind of the standard that I've seen across a lot of cards. And then some of your cards are going to be shorter, like 3 to 6 months. So it's important that we understand this time frame because depending on how much debt we're moving or how many expenses we're putting on this card, we want to make sure that we can pay off the entire amount before this time frame runs out. Because remember, if your time frame runs out, your 0% time frame runs out, and you're holding a balance, you're gonna get charged interest on that balance, and then it defeats the purpose. So always pay attention to the time frame, and that is something that you can read on the terms and conditions of the credit card you are going for, or you can literally call the bank to verify. Remember, if you don't understand something or you don't know something, call the bank. A lot of times they're gonna give you your answer, but this is something you can read. Now the next part, now that we understand time frame and how important it is, we also have to understand what type of credit card are we getting. Is the 0% interest only for purchases? Is it only for balance transfers? Or is it for both? With that being said, we need to understand what these terms mean. A purchase means any transaction you make on the card will be considered a purchase, and that will qualify for a 0% interest period. A balance transfer is when you use your card that you got approved for to pay off debt from a different credit card. Let's say you have a Chase card and the Amex card. Let's say you owe 10K on the Amex card, and let's say you just got approved for 10K on the Chase card. Let's say Chase allowed you to do a balance transfer. What you could do is then use the Chase card to pay off the Amex card that has the 10K, and now what's going to happen is Amex will turn into $0 because you paid it off, and then the Chase card will get the $10,000 balance. So that's all a balance transfer is. You're using the new card you got to pay off a different card. This card gets paid by the amount that you balance transferred, and then the entire balance is shifted to your new card. And remember, always confirm that the card can actually do this. Certain cards will give you 0% interest for purchases only. That means if you are planning on getting a card so you can balance transfer, if you don't read and your card does not allow 0% balance transfers, then you're not going to qualify. Your card may still allow balance transfer, but it won't be 0% interest. It'll be whatever interest your card normally charges. So that defeats the purpose of taking out the 0% card. And this can be vice versa. Maybe you're taking out a 0% interest card to start purchasing things at 0%, but maybe you don't read the terms and conditions and the 0% is only on balance transfers. Well, that means if you make normal purchases, since that doesn't qualify for the 0% interest promotion, all these purchases you make are going to get charged normal interest. And you would only be safe to transfer balances and hold them at 0% interest. So the best type of cards are the ones that can do both. But remember, not all cards do. In fact, the majority of cards only allow 0% interest on purchases, and few cards allow 0% on purchases and balance transfers. So just make sure you're understanding and researching what card you're going for so you can go with the right card for your situation. Now, the final thing I want to talk to you guys about is, should we get personal 0% funding or business 0% funding? Well, it depends. If you are an entrepreneur or a business owner, somebody that's looking to get capital to invest it, I highly recommend you go with 0% business cards. The reason why is because remember, on the business side, if you're getting the right business credit cards, they're not going to show up on your personal credit report. What this means is that now you can max out the entire limit and not have to worry about your personal credit dropping. Remember, on the personal credit side, you have to worry about utilization. If you leave a balance higher than 30% utilization, your score will tank. And that's not a good thing. If credit card companies see that your credit score is dropping, they can do a couple of things. They can shut down your card, they can freeze your card, they can even reduce the credit limit you have available. That's why I don't recommend that you use your personal cards to run a business, to invest into something. If you are able to access business funding, take out business credit cards because the right ones won't show up on your personal credit, and you'll be able to maximize that 0% interest to the fullest because you can spend the total amount of money. However, if you really need to access funding and you just don't have a strong enough credit file to access business funding yet, then it's okay. Do what you need to do, but just understand the consequences of holding maxed out credit card balances for too long. And the thing that sucks is even though it's a 0% card and you're not getting charged interest on the money you're holding on the personal cards, you still have to worry about utilization, and holding maxed out credit cards, whether or not there's 0% interest or not, can still come with consequences. This is why business credit cards at 0% interest are usually better if you're planning to run a business or invest the money. And another strategy you could do is if you're trying to maximize all the 0% funding you can get, then I would say get as much money on the business side as possible. And then you can also get funding on the personal side, but just only use 30% of whatever limits you get. Let's say you have a strong file and you access 200K at 0% on the business side. And let's say you apply for more cards on the personal side and you get another 100K. Then I would just say use 30% of that, which 30% of 100K is 30K. So now you can safely use 30K to keep yourself within the 30% utilization or less on top of your 200K. So you can mix and match. And this is what I mean by strategizing based off your situation. But if you ask me, the ultimate thing to do is always take out the business credit cards at 0% and just get a little bit of it on the personal side to have that backup capital. But that's pretty much it, guys. So we talked about how 0% interest funding works. And to recap, it allows us to maximize profits because it's free money, so we're not losing anything paying interest on it. We can hold the balances because there's 0%. We're not going to charge interest on it, so we don't need to pay the whole thing off next month. We can hold it as long as our 0% interest period allows us to. And then we can shift debt to income ratios. We can go ahead and use the business funding to pay off the personal debt and move it to the business debt. This would clean up our DTI on the personal side. Also, it allows us to start a business a lot faster because you can just borrow this money rather than wasting time having to save it up. And you can invest this money. If we see an opportunity to make money, we can borrow the 0% interest money. And then once we get our investment and our profits back, pay off the cards and keep the profits. And also, it allows us to pay off debt quicker. If you don't even care about starting a business or investing this money, you can at least save yourself money by getting this funding, because now you can transfer high interest personal debt over to the business side at 0% interest, and every payment you make is going completely to knock down that balance rather than holding high interest debt on the personal side, and the payment you make, a portion of it is going to the balance and then a portion of it is getting thrown away to interest. So this is how you can speed up paying your debt quicker. Other than that, the most important things to look out for is the time frame. Make sure that you understand how long the 0% interest period is for so you don't get caught slipping when the time runs out and you owe money on that. Remember to always look at the card you're getting and see if it allows 0% interest for purchases only, for balance transfers only, or for both. If you can, try to get one that does it for both. That's the best of both worlds. And then finally, you can decide whether you want to take it out on the personal side or the business side. I highly recommend, if you are ready for business funding, that you take out 0% interest products on the business side, because most of the cards you will get will not report to the personal credit, which means you can max out the entire limit and just have more capital to use at 0% compared to the personal, where you have to be cautious and make sure not to exceed 30% of whatever limits you are given. So that's pretty much it, guys. This is a quick overview of how 0% interest funding works. I gave you guys a lot of gems on 0% interest funding and why I love it especially. And one thing I do personally is with my business, I actually spend everything on 0% cards, and I'll hold those cards maxed out until the 0% period is running out. Once it's running out, I'll start making really big payments to knock that whole thing out. And the reason I like it is because it allows me to keep more money in my bank accounts, which increases my cash flow and allows me to use cash if necessary for my next move. I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. And remember, if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, it's Alex Credit Expert. That way you guys can keep up to date with what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you for the next one. Peace.